What's going on, everybody? Reed here from 2 and 1. As mentioned previously, I mentioned that we were going to be starting to roll out a bunch of tutorials on how to, make different types of music, different production techniques, and how we've made our own music over the past, let's say, 8 months or so. So I just want to dive in here. What I wanted to go over today was vocal chops. So I typically have about 3 ways that I approach vocal chops. In this tutorial today, we'll call it part 1. I'm going to show you one of the easier ways to do it. If you're going for a more simplistic but sort of rhythmic and groovy and vibey style vocal chop. So I'll quickly play what we're going to be going over today. It's just a little track that I'm working on right now. Keep in mind it might be clipping a bit, but that's just because I haven't properly mixed it yet. So don't worry about that. But have a listen. So if you don't yet have a vocalist on your track and therefore don't have, a vocal to work with when it comes to manipulating them, a good place to start is splice.com, and that's where you can get tons of free samples. You can get vocal one-shots, you can get vocal hooks, whatever it is. In this particular example, I found a nice little one-shot from Splice. So I'm going to basically show you how to make it. So we're going to start with making an audio track. We'll go back to the beginning here. I'm going to open Splice. This is the particular sample I used. So let's pull that in. So this is how the sample sounds originally. So how do we take that to become this? All right, well, let's break it down. So the first thing we want to do is lay out the rhythm. How do we want this to sound? When do we want the notes to hit? What notes do we want to hit? So for this one, I wanted it to be really cohesive with the synths and the bass. So as you can hear, we'll just play my synth bus and my bass bus, or just my bass, sorry. Oops. So I really wanted the vocal chops to really blend into that sound and add sort of a top melody to them. So that's what we went for here. So I'll mute these ones and I'll show you how we did it. So first thing, as I mentioned, we're going to build the rhythm. So let's chop this vocal track up. What you can do is Command C. Okay, so we've got our rhythm laid out. So this is what we're hearing so far. It's terrible. So let's add some melody to it. So a nice trick that you can do in Logic, and I'm sure there's ways to do this in other DAWs too, are transposing. And this is something that I didn't realize you could do it this easily when I first was working with Logic. It took me a while to figure this out. What you can do is click on the particular audio file that you want to manipulate. And if you go to region right up here, you can see down here, transpose. So you can actually pull the sound up a certain amount of semitones. So let's pull this up. I believe we did 3 on the first one. Yeah, and then 5. Yeah, okay, so let's pull that up 5 semitones. So now all of a sudden we've got... And then I think we want to take this one up to 7. So we've got our melody laid out. We've got our rhythm laid out. The bulk of the tedious stuff is done. Also, it's fun though, because once you know that you've sort of landed on a nice rhythm and a nice melody, it's a good feeling, because then you know that you've got something on your hands that you can work with. So these over. All right, beautiful. So now let's get into the processing of these to make them actually sound good and make them blend into the mix in a really nice way. So the first thing that I'll do is I'm going to pull out an EQ. You can use the Logic EQ. It's great. I used it for years before I got this. I still use it sometimes, but this one from FabFilter is kind of my go-to for stuff like this. It's called the Pro Q3, and it's just, you know, really visual, and you can really isolate frequencies to get a good sense of what it is you want to change. But let's start with cutting out that low end, because we do not need that there. It's only going to really clash with the bass. Sounds good. Now I hear some harsh frequencies in there that I don't like. So I'm just gonna move around here and see if we can find them. Pull that down. So now cut that little bit out there. Be careful when you're dipping these. You don't want to overdo it because it can really take away a lot of the body from your sound. But I think these little tweaks do go a long way in the overall sound though. That's good for now. Next thing we're going to do is I'm going to pull out OTT. So OTT is a free plugin from X4 Records. It's a multi-band compression tool, but it also kind of acts as like a saturator and can really bring out some nice harmonics in your sounds. The depth here is basically the mix knob. I don't really like to overdo it because it's pretty aggressive sometimes, but let's just mix it in and see what we hear. Let's pull down the low a bit, maybe boost the mids, tame the highs. So the one thing about OTT is it sometimes will bring out some harsh frequencies. So I'm just going to pull out another EQ to do another assessment right there. There's a lot of harshness there. So we're going to dip this area a bit. Do a slight high cut. All right, not perfect, but for the sake of time, I'll move along. So let's move this right to the center of our mix. The reason I want to do that right now is because I have the synths pretty spread right now, and they're really dominating the sides. I want this being right down the center of the mix as it is our lead, and I want it sort of hitting with the kick and the snare. So what we can do to do that is we go to imaging. We're going to pull out our direction mixer. So here we can literally just, boom, push it right to mono. So mono means directly down the middle of the frequency spectrum. So here we go now. It's right down the middle there. We will be bringing out a bit more of the sides when we add things like delay and reverb, but it's nice to have the original frequency just going right down the middle. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is some kickstart. So what kickstart is it's a plugin from Nicky Romero. It's a sidechain. So what it does is it dips the volume of the sound at certain points. So right now I have it set to every quarter note, you can see right there, so that every time the quarter note hits, the frequencies will dip, the volume will dip. And it can really add a nice waviness. It can leave room for other things like the kick and snare to breathe. Even though this isn't a 4 to the floor beat, I think having it on this setting just really flowed well with the type of rhythm structure that I was trying to go with. So I had it just at the default setting at 100%. Thought it sounded great. Didn't need to change anything. So you can just hear that. all of a sudden it's added a ton of rhythm, a ton of waviness to it, and really gets the sound moving. Next thing I'm going to do is send it to a delay bus. So the reason that we would use a bus is because sometimes if you're using similar plugins on numerous tracks or on a stack of instruments, you don't want to have to put it on every single channel strip. So what you can do is send it to a bus, and that way you're not eating as much CPU usage. As well as it can add a lot of consistency to your sounds. If, say, for example, I often use all my percussion on the same reverb, and a similar amount as well, so that it can make your track sound a lot more like one cohesive unit. Of course, you don't always have to do that, but in this case, I wanted to do that. So I have this delay here called a repeater. So delay is essentially echo. Might be another word of saying it, but what I have it set to is I have this ambient lead vocal preset, and then I have it at a quarter note on the left and right, and I actually turned on the ping pong option right here. So what ping pong does is it has the delay bouncing from side to side, so it kind of adds a little bit more spread to it. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and mix that in. As you can see, I'm turning up this little knob here to send some of the signal to that delay bus. So I like that. Now you'll notice this other plugin here. So that's FabFilter Pro C2, and this is a trick that I like to do on my delays. I often do it on vocals and leads, but what it does is I'm actually going to sidechain the delay to the initial vocal signal here. So the way that you do that is you go to sidechain, you pick your audio file there, or you can go to audio or wherever there. And then what you want to do is, I've already got it turned on, X'd. So now you can see every time the vocal chop plays, the frequencies dip, the volume dips, and it really allows the delay not to bleed into the lead, and then after it kind of all spreads out nicely. So there's that. I like that. So we'll leave that as is for now, and then we're gonna add some reverb. I'm gonna use Reverb. So this is one of Logic's stock reverbs. I have it set to about 2.7 decay. Decay time is basically how long the reverb lasts, how far down the hall it goes. And then I EQ'd the reverb a little bit here if you click on details. So I cut out some of the lows, cut out some of those harsh highs, so that we've really just got a nice sound sort of in the high mids and highs even, and we'll mix that in. There you go. Now we're gonna do the same thing with the compressor here, so the side channel. There's that. So we've pretty much got that good. I mean, for now, that's how we're gonna use it. The last thing I'll do here is we're gonna bounce this in place. So highlight all of them, go to bounce in place, new track, normalize off, leave the source so that you don't get rid of this. So now what that's done is essentially bounced it into another one here in one file. And what I'm gonna do is I wanna thicken this up a little bit and just add a low end. So I'm actually just going to pull out this plugin called Manipulator from Infected Mushroom. And you can do this with the Logic pitch shifter as well. No worries. I just like this one. I like the way it sounds. So I'm going to pull it down 12 semitones in the pitch here so that we get a lower version. Let's hear how that sounds. And I just tweaked the formant there a little bit to make sure the sound wasn't too harsh. I'm gonna EQ it a little bit so because there are some lower frequencies here. And we're gonna have this pretty quiet because I just want it to sort of complement the lead. There you have it, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something from this. If not, I hope it at least sort of gave you another way to look at things and encourage you to try doing something like this yourself. But anyways, keep an eye out. We're going to be releasing these tutorials every week. There's going to be a couple more vocal chop tutorials on how to do that, as well as tons of other things. Keep an eye out for free samples coming up in the new year. This is going to be an exciting year. And we've got a single coming out on January 15th with High Beats from Chile, an amazing producer, and Julia Fedek, an amazing vocalist also from Canada here. So keep an eye out, guys, and thanks for checking it out. Stay safe and Happy New Year.